As an educator, I'm constantly seeking ways to be better for you. Sometimes being better means that I'm able to utilize some of the knowledge and skills that I've learned and have acquired over time. Sometimes it means I have to engage in new learning. At all times, it means that I have to be open and willing to position myself as a learner. When someone thinks of high school, they typically do not think of adult learning. The focus is primarily focused on student learning. My life experiences have taught me otherwise. Many educators have spent years obtaining degrees and various endorsements that prepare us to teach hypothetical students across what seems to be hypothetical context, with some of our students facing hypothetical situations. As pre-service teachers, we would vacillate in the theoretical, we would discuss how to handle various situations, but truly had no idea what we were getting into. For most of us, we only knew of our own educational experiences or were aware of the experiences of our parents, siblings, or close friends. The truth is, we had no idea what's to come, and after jumping into our first school, with our first classes filled with students, we realized that the traditional ways in which we're taught to educate and prepare for the field of education was not enough. I guess it's sort of like parenting. Is anyone ever truly prepared? I live in a state of becoming, and my life is truly a journey. This not only pertains to my life overall, but more specifically, it pertains to my life as an educator. I think about my experiences as a senior in college, assigned to student teach at a local high school. I wanted to student teach in the city, hoping to have a different experience than my suburban education, and needed to make sure that I was able to get back on campus, though, in time for my preseason practice every day because I was a student athlete. I wasn't able to teach where I wanted to and ended up at a local high school. Growing up, I attended an elite private school from the grades of 3rd through 12th grade. My graduating class was approximately 85 students. Here I was, walking into one of the biggest high schools in the area with over 3,200 students in attendance. I fell in love with everything about the school and quickly had to admit that I was exactly where I needed to be. I marveled at the brilliance, wisdom, and the command of my mentor teacher, Mr. Clayton Taylor. He seemed like a master magician to me. He was able to create a learning environment where students were comfortable, challenged, inspired, and engaged. He took the highest performers to new heights, and he motivated and built resilience among students who needed different tools or different teaching techniques to grasp the same information. He believed that all students possessed endless learning potential and that some students just needed him to do something different to support their learning. That was okay, it was welcomed, and it was the norm in his classes. Everyone was learning and growing. How do you know so much about history? I would ask. It was enough to keep track of life as we know it, but Mr. Taylor talked about history as if he was the first human being on earth, with insights, experiences, and a story related to everything. How did you know that Samantha needed an altered assignment? And how did you know that Michael needed to keep his head down for a bit, but was listening to every word that you said? How did you know that Sarah needed visual cues to follow along in the lesson? Every single day, I had these types of questions for him. He would chuckle, looking over his glasses with his big eyes. Perhaps he was flattered by my awe, which my excitement and curiosity made impossible for me to hide. There was an air of nostalgia as he reminisced on his educational career spanning over 30 years. He was always very thoughtful and careful in his responses to me, adding the perfect amount of new information and often ending his statements with ideas or questions that would leave me wanting to know more, yet sensing the responsibility that I had to find out the answers on my own. The same energy that he poured into every fragile mind who walked into his classrooms was the same energy that he poured into me. I was just a little older. I was a sponge, trying to soak up as much as possible, feeling a lot of pressure and feeling inadequately prepared for one of the biggest responsibilities that I would accept in my life, becoming a teacher. One day, as we debriefed the day, and as we began to prepare for my transition into taking full responsibility over his classes for the next few weeks, he sensed all of my anxiety and stress. He paused, looked at me with those big, glassy eyes, and stated with his deep, stern, yet caring voice, "Shayla, The students will teach you everything you need to know. The biggest obstacle you will face is allowing them to. I sat in silence for a few minutes as he went back to grading assignments and entering grades in his paper grade book. In a matter of seconds, his wise and sage wisdom rocked my world. He taught me more than all the courses I had taken to prepare to teach. His advice tamed my arrogance, totally exposed my ignorance, and shifted my beliefs and anxieties about being the primary expert in the room. It set me on a journey during my years as a teacher and then as an administrator to see myself as a lead learner with my students, every single one of my students, as my teachers. The years that followed as a teacher were some of the best days of my life. I had many great days, but I also had plenty of days that were difficult and challenging. Working through my difficulties caused me to learn more about myself, and was also at those times when I grew the most. Oh, and about those challenging days, I had plenty of them. These were mostly moments when Mr. Taylor's wisdom was buried under my own will. Times when I lost sight of his advice because I wanted to get to a certain point in the curriculum, whether my students demonstrated learning or not. Times when I was more focused on order and compliance, rather than considering the constant intersection of issues of depression, pain, hurt, stress, confusion, and shame that many of my students brought to my class and to school every day. Times when I failed to create a learning environment where multiple perspectives were shared and present in our examination of history. I can keep going. My students taught me to slow down, to learn who they were, and they taught me about the importance of establishing meaningful relationships with them. They taught me the value in finding out what inspires and excites them. They taught me to try different strategies, instructional activities, and different ways to assess their learning. They taught me that each of them have knowledge, skills, and gifts that when leveraged can not only support their learning, but the learning of their peers as well. My students reminded me that they all wanted to be successful without exception, but many things outside of their control were getting in the way. Sometimes these were things outside of school, sometimes they were obstacles and structures within the school, and sometimes the obstacles were deeply held beliefs that others had about them. They taught me to care about them beyond grades and beyond academic achievement, and to care about them in their entirety. They taught me to care about their struggles, their stresses, and to understand their challenges. Rather than to be like everyone else and punish them for the things that they carry, or to label them or seek other spaces for them to go, they were simply asking me to love them through their struggles and hoping that I would work with them to lighten their loads. My students taught me to honor their journey. They were constantly bombarded with messages of how they should look, what they should think, how they should dress, what they should believe about themselves, and what they should believe about the world. They were overwhelmed with messages that ran counter to who they truly were, yet they found themselves becoming what others wanted for them, which created a lot of internal stress and pain. Looking back, I have to laugh at my eagerness as a 21-year-old senior in college, preparing to teach students who were only 4 to 8 years younger than me. If I wrote down all of the questions that I asked Mr. Taylor, I'm sure I would have a stack of composition books. I guess I should have mentioned, he was extremely patient with me. I was in awe of him at the time, but as I engaged as a teacher and now as an administrator, my awe has shifted. I now remain in awe of the many students that I've been blessed to partner with during my career in education. It is you who continues to push me and my thinking. You continue to contribute to my learning. Since my first year working here, every week I write your names on the school's birthday board. I've been encouraged to find ways to electronically display your names and your birthdays, so I do not have to take the time at the end of the week or over the weekends to write your names. Selfishly, there's something special about engaging in this weekly ritual for me. Every week that I write your names, I think about you. I think about you walking to school early in the morning or getting dropped off to meet with your teachers. I think about your late night practices and rehearsals and the countless amount of hours that you're here during the day and over the weekends. I think about you sitting in the cafeteria with your friends or sitting alone in the hallway because you're too afraid to go into the cafeteria. I think about your tears. I think about your frustrations. I think about you running up and down the field, around the track, across the court. I think about you rocking out on stage and performing for your loved ones. I think about the times when you're exhausted and tired, in need of a break. I think about the times when you're hurt by something someone said or how someone responded to you. I think about you laughing and dancing with your friends. And I also think about you ignoring your parents as they try to give you final reminders for the day as you're getting out of the car in the morning. As you shut the car door, roll your eyes, and walk towards the building, all I can do is laugh because I was the same way in high school. I think about you a lot, and I pray for you every week as I write each letter of your first and last names on the board. In the same breath, I pray for myself, your rapping principal, and everyone that you interact with here in the school. The magnitude of the responsibility that I accepted as a teacher 17 years ago is just as great today. As I continue to ask questions and seek ways to ensure that all of you are learning and growing under our care, and as I work hard to navigate the ever-evolving and changing landscape of education and the array of needs that you continue to present every single day, in my times of confusion and uncertainty, I go back to the core of Mr. Taylor's wisdom. It has been my resting place, but it has also been my place of action. And guess who's constantly there? It's you. You keep me up late at night, and it is you who wakes me up, filled with purpose and a smile on my face every single morning. And it is you who continues to teach me everything I need to know. Thank you.